Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our workshop on the Growing Innovation Fund. My name is Sandra Edwards, and I'm a business advisor at SEMLEP's Growth Hub. My background is in marketing, and I have a family business which provides business coaching. Now, two of my colleagues are on the call, Kelly and Carl. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Kelly Bowman. I am one of the business advisors in the Growth Hub team. We work with businesses on a day-to-day basis, but I have quite a lot of experience helping to deliver the grant programs that we've been working on over the years. So hopefully I can add some value today.
Good morning to everyone. My name's Carl Mayers. Again, I'm in the Growth Hub team with Kelly and Sandra.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, guys. All right, next slide, please. Okay, today's workshop is going to cover a variety of different areas. We're going to start with an overview of the Growing Innovation Fund. Then we're going to look at the key priorities of the fund, which is going to be assessed. A lot of us focus is going to be on this particular area. We're going to go through, then look at the eligibility criteria and the actual step-by-step process that the application process is going to take you to. Then we're going to spend a bit of time on the expression of interest form, and then we're going to look at some questions, share any questions from yourselves, and then that will bring the session to a close. So the Growing Innovation Fund, in essence, is a capital grant. It has various values. It ranges from £100,000 to £300,000. Now, what you need to be aware of is that you will need to provide match funding of at least 50%. And any project that you're bringing to this grant needs to be aligned with the following areas: innovation, commercialization of ideas, decarbonisation, and contribution to local priorities. Now, we're going to discuss those a little bit on the next slide down. Thank you, Kelly. Now, these are the key priorities which your project needs to basically really focus on or have some element on. Now, these are going to be assessed quite heavily in the actual grant side of things. So we need to look at how your project aligns with these key areas. So in terms of an innovation point of view, you want to look at whether your project basically has a new product or service to your business, or it's a new product or service to your market. You want to look to see how, from a commercial perspective, what are the outputs of your project? Is it new jobs? Is it increasing efficiency? Is it, more production units? Whatever it is, you need to express what that is. From a decarbonisation process project perspective, is your project doing anything around reducing carbon emissions? For example, if your company is such, if you produce waste, are you handling that waste in a more environmentally friendly way? Something to think about. From a contribution to local priorities, SEMLEP's local priorities and your local authority will have strategic priorities set out, basically, and we want to see where your project is in alignment with those strategies, those future strategies, goals and objectives for the local community, and see where your project taps in. If we go to the next slide, we can explore this a little bit more with the SEMLEP's local priorities. Now, we have, under our local priorities, we focus on the local industrial strategy, the economic recovery strategy, sustainable development policy, and equality and diversity policy. Now, when this workshop finishes, you will get access to these slides, and you'll be able to click through on each of these links, and it will give you a whole breadth and depth of each of those key areas. And you'll be able to see where your project aligns in each of these areas. So it's very fundamental from an assessment point of view that your project, it doesn't have to be aligned to every single one, but the more alignment it has in each of those, the stronger your application will be and the greater your chances in getting through to the next stage. So from a local authorities perspective, which you'll need to tap into, you need to go into your local authorities website and see what their key local strategy is, and see how your project aligns with that. And it's all about then seeing when you can see where your project aligns, then it's about incorporating that alignment into your application to tell us about it and the links. Next one, Kelly. In terms of eligibility, you need to be based within the South East Midlands. So that's Northamptonshire, Bedfordshire and Milton Keynes. Your business must not be in any financial difficulty. Public sector organisations cannot apply. And one of the things that must happen is that you must be compliant with subsidy control requirements for the scheme, which varies in amounts according to your project value. Okay. So looking at the process this fund is going to take you through, your first step is that you'll make an application online, which is the expression of interest form. So this form will be launching on the 1st of August at 5 p.m. Once you've submitted your expression of interest form, it will be evaluated. It will be scored against the key priorities and other things that I've mentioned earlier. Now, those successful applicants that pass this stage will be invited to full application, and that will happen at early October in 2023. Now, one thing you need to know, just because you submit an expression of interest form does not mean you automatically get through to the application stage, which is why we want to heavily focus on making sure you do a really strong expression of interest form, because it's that the stronger it is, the stronger, more likely chance that you're going to get through to the next stage. Now, once you've completed the application process, it will be assessed and a decision will be made. If you're successful, then your project will then go on to monitoring and of the delivery of the project, and we'll look at the evidence and outcomes of it as well in terms of recording that. But that gives you an overall insight into the process that you're going to go through.
So just thought it might be worth just having a quick break just to see if anybody has any questions at this stage with regards to the sort of eligibility side, the key priorities, just so that we can sort of try and answer those before moving on to the actual expression of interest form itself. Marion?
Yeah, I just wanted to check. Sorry, I arrived a little late this morning. Is there any limitations on the size of organisation that can apply to this fund?
So for this particular fund, I think it's not just limited to SMEs. I think you can be a larger organisation as opposed to our smaller grants. There's a lot more restrictions on that side of things.
Hi there. Quick question from me. The expression of interest form, is that we need to submit an excellent form, otherwise we won't be considered to go on to the next stage? Do we get any support with that? Do we get to sort of try and submit it to somebody beforehand to get a sanity check on it?
Okay. So the expression of interest form is an online form. So it would need to be completed and submitted online. It's not downloadable, unfortunately. There will be support available to you ahead of submitting that form. So have a look. What we're going to do now is take you through each section of the expression of interest form so that you're aware of exactly what type of information, what level of detail will be required when submitting the form. What we're saying is we don't currently have a sort of a save button on the form. So it's probably best to complete your answers in a separate document, and when you're ready to submit, copy those answers over and submit. I know it's a bit of a long-winded way of doing it, but it would hate for you to lose your answers halfway through if anything was to happen. There is also a link on the website. We'll send you all of the relevant information, but there'll be a link on the website to the assessment framework, and that is going to show you how you're going to be scored. So your expression of interest will be scored dependent on the key priority areas that you hit. Obviously, you don't have to align your project with all of the key priority areas, but the more that you align with, the higher the scoring will be. So that will really give you a good guide as to how each expression of interest will be scored, and what you need to consider when you're submitting it.
But I think if we're on the next section, which is
We'll
going to
run
go
all the way
really
through
down
that, yes.
into the expression of interest, will help you a lot as well. But you are free to contact us as well after the session to have any other questions that you may have. We'll be happy to answer those.
Thank you.
So with that said, if there isn't any more questions,
Hi,
I'll
sorry,
hand
I
over to
have
Kelly. Oh, you are.
Sorry,
Caroline.
Caroline.
Sorry.
So I hadn't come across the public sector organisations definitely cannot apply line before in any of the guidance. So charities that are registered as charities and limited companies, does that therefore exclude them?
Oh,
There is a split.
do we know on that one,
We
Carol?
do have, I think in our FAQs, I think somebody may have already asked that question. Bear with me. Can I come back to you on that? We've got it somewhere. Could I message you?
Let's double check on that one,
Yeah,
so we'll make sure we get that.
Just so I've got the correct answer for you. I'll come
That would
back to
definitely be
you.
a good one to
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
else to. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Kelly, it's over to you. Kelly's going to be covering the expression of interest assessment and also the online form, and she's going to go through it in some detail. So over to you, Kelly.
Yep, sure. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, so this part of it is a bit more of the practical side of the expression of interest submission. So as mentioned, there is an assessment framework which the grant panel will use to score your expression of interest. That will then go to panel, and then after the panel have reviewed your expression of interest, you may or may not be invited to a full application depending on the scoring of the expression of interest. So what the grant team are looking for is these sort of points here, which is the eligibility of the business, the proof that you can provide, obviously, that you're registered, you're an existing business in the area, financial information. Can the project be delivered within the time frame? So this program will run until March 2025. So the project will need to be delivered and all expenditure incurred by March 2025. The rationale for the project, so the project justification, why the project needs to happen, the strategic alignment, aligning the project with the key priorities, as Sandra's mentioned: innovation, decarbonisation, commercialisation, and obviously that alignment with the local priorities of the local authority in SEMLEP. The economic, social and environmental contribution, project delivery, start date, end date. Again, this will be scored depending on how ready your project is as well. That will score higher. And the geographical spread. So a proportion of the funding has been spread across the SEMLEP geographical area. So each local authority area will have a certain amount of funds. So obviously that's how that's also going to be scored. So projects that score highly will be invited to a full application in early October. So the next section is really just to take you through. So when you go into the online form, there will be a number of tabs, and that's each section of the expression of interest form. So the first section is just covering instruction and criteria, contact information, strategic alignment, project overview and rationale, project delivery, the wider economic, social and environmental contribution of the project, and then you can submit your expression of interest. The deadline is the 1st of August 2023. So just drilling down into the detail of the introduction criteria, so the type of information that you're going to need. So the project information, they want to see your ambitions to support innovation, decarbonisation and commercialisation of ideas. As Sandra mentioned, there are a number of key documents which we can send to you. that kind of outline those priority areas. So it's worth having a look at those to align your projects with those. It is at least a 50% match funded grant. The more match you can put forward, again, that helps to score higher in the assessment part of the process. The minimum grant available is 100,000 and the maximum is 300,000. So your project total could be a minimum of, a maximum. Well, the grant amount available is 300, but your project could be 600,000 or upwards. You would need to meet the outputs. So again, listed within the information is various different outputs, which include sort of job creation, new products and services. And you'd need to show you've got clear objectives, evidencing the need, the demand of the projects, that rationale side of things. Just sort of pulled out some of the financial information that they're going to need on the contact application and financial information section, just so that you're aware. As I mentioned, it is an online form. So all of these sections are mandatory. So it's just to make you aware to have this sort of level of detail when submitting your expression of interest. Unfortunately, we can't upload any documents onto the form. So we just need to complete this part of the section on the expression of interest form. So just again, reiterating the key priorities of the grant: support for innovation, decarbonisation, supporting commercialisation of a product or service, and again, aligning that with the local priorities. This will obviously help with the scoring process. Again, your project will not need to align to all of these, but if it's an element of several of those, again, that will really work and help the expression of interest become stronger and have more of a score. So just going on to the project overview and rationale. This is where you're going to sort of set out why you are looking for the grant funding to support your project, describing the project. Don't leave it to interpretation, just be nice and clear as to what your project is and what the outcomes are going to be. There's a bit in there about where your match is going to come from. Obviously a minimum of 50% match funding, but the more you can provide, the higher your EOI will score. And then again, just a little bit of financial information about the project itself, the total project cost, how much you're looking to how much grant you're looking for, what the match is going to be. Is the match already in place? And what is the source of the match funding as well? So the next slide is about project delivery. So again, they'd want to know the start and end date of the project. If it's more oven ready, then that's great. You can get cracking with it. But obviously it does just need to be delivered by March 2025. So there is time, it doesn't need to be oven ready. Construction and building projects will be considered, but planning permission will need to be in place for that. So just to make you aware again with timing. And again, just being aware of the outputs there, just to remind you, new jobs, new products and services, reduction in carbon footprint, or anything else that's relevant to this particular grant eligibility. Now, just to delve a little bit deeper into the contributions. So we spoke about those sort of strategic documents that are available on the SEMLET website. But it's just to kind of drill down and show how what the project is going to do is probably going to hit a lot of those key strands in terms of, do you expect to create new jobs, from the grant? Do you expect to create new jobs in your supply chain from delivering the project? Will your project allow your business to offer higher value or improved goods and services? Will your project make your business more competitive in the industry? So just be aware of some of those sort of key areas that fall under the economic impacts that are probably going to fall in line anyway from the project outcomes. And then just sort of, again, drilling down onto the social impacts. Does your project directly or indirectly influence health outcomes? Would your project influence diverse recruitment practices in the business? Would your project involve or support any voluntary community or social enterprises? Just worth thinking about some of those parts of the project that might align nicely with some of these examples here. Just worth pointing out. And then the third one is the environmental impacts. So do you expect your project to influence your direct carbon emissions? Do you expect your project to influence your indirect carbon emissions? So looking at the supply chain, looking at the customer, when the product is being used, the whole journey of the product. Does your project generate any waste projects, and will these be managed to reduce environmental impact? So just some ideas there as to the sorts of elements that you could potentially bring in to the project when you're submitting your expression of interest. So just before I go on to the next slide, does anybody have any questions in relation to that section of the expression of interest? Marion.
Kelly,
Sorry.
I think Sarah raised a point around the submission date. Just to clarify, the 1st of August is the deadline submission date for the first round of EOIs. So it's just under 3 weeks till that submission date. So round one submission date will be the 1st of August.
Well, I think the only submission date that we have for the EOIs for this particular grant is the 1st of August. They haven't selected another deadline date because they want to see the level of interest, I guess, to start off with. So they haven't put a date in the diary for that. So I would assume if you wanted to submit an expression of interest, get it in before the deadline date, in case there isn't another opportunity, because they're not sure on the level of interest they're going to have. So that's the only date that they've actually put in as a deadline date.
Sorry, can I ask a question following on from that then? Yeah, so obviously we have a project that we're thinking of doing, but we haven't had final quotes come through yet. Do we need that information? So at the moment it's still we're expecting it to be X thousand, but actually the quotes could come in and it could be 50, 60,000 more or less. Have we got to get quotes in for that expression of interest, or is it just a guideline at this stage?
It's a guideline at this stage. There won't be an opportunity to upload any quotes, or there isn't anywhere within the expression of interest form for you to put that information in. So it's really just an idea as to the amount.
Can I ask my question now?
Yeah.
Well, a couple of questions. On the slide there a minute ago, you were mentioning about the match contribution. It did say on the slide about 60% match. So I was wondering, is it 60% or 50%? Secondly, so if I missed it earlier, in terms of charitable and non-profit organisations that might be applying, can the match include contributed time by volunteers? And thirdly, about in terms of the funding that we might apply for, can we use it both for capital and revenue purposes?
Okay, so just to address the first question, so sorry, I should have elaborated more on that. So the minimum amount of match funding is 50%. We have been asked the question, can you use other public funding to match the match funding, if that makes sense? So that's where the 60%, so say you were going to put forward 50% match, 60% of that match would need to be private funding. 40%, dependent on where it's coming from, if another grant was going to be used, obviously each grant has its own output, so it's whether that would actually fit with what you're matching, if that makes sense. So there is an opportunity to use some public funding to match your match, to add to the match, if that makes sense. I can have a conversation offline with you if you wanted me to go into any more detail, but there is an opportunity. It doesn't all have to be private, but they want at least 60% of it to be private match.
Thank you.
In terms of the question about volunteers, because it kind of answers the second question as well, because it is a capital grant, it wouldn't be able to use to pay for staff or services. It would have to be for capital items.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So the next slide is really just to provide you again with a bit of an overview of the dates that you need to be aware of. So the closure, the only date we have at the moment is 1st of August, and that is the deadline to get your expressions of interest in. It is an online form. It's already on the website now. We're going to send you these slides. We've also got a recording of this, which will go onto our YouTube channel, which we can send you the link to as well. If you have any questions, obviously come back to us. So that's the date that we have at the moment for the closure of the EOI. And then, as you can see, they are going to be assessed and scored with it between August and September. And then hopefully they'll have gone to panel. We'll have some decisions at the end of September, and then we'll be making contact with organisations to invite them to applications should they be successful early October. And then the deadline for those full applications is the 15th of November. We are here to help as much as possible, so don't hesitate to contact us if you want to set a meeting up and run through the application form in more detail. More than happy to provide feedback on that and provide any sort of other support that we can. Approvals will look to happen at the end of the year, and then throughout the next sort of months and up to 2025, March 2025 is when the grants team will be working with you, monitoring outputs and spend and that sort of thing. So that's kind of how that will run. So we've just put, some of these might be a bit obvious, but we've just put some hints and tips, which we asked the grants team, and obviously from our own experience, just things to be aware of. Have a look at the assessment framework to fully understand the scoring system. Some areas are scored more highly than others, so just be aware of what the opportunity is there in terms of scoring. Obviously, make sure that this is the right fund for your project. There's a lot of work to do. And a lot of things to read and to consider. So just double check that it is the right fund for your project. Clearly state exactly what it is that you're doing and the justification behind it. Don't leave it open to interpretation. Obviously, the people that are on the panel, they won't have had a conversation with you. They wouldn't have had any interaction with you. So just sort of spell it out for them so it's nice and clear. Make sure that you complete all sections of the EOI. They're all mandatory sections. Allow yourself enough time. See, the deadline is the 1st of August. And just also, again, this probably sounds really obvious, but just make sure all your financial information will tie up with what you're going to eventually submit. If you do go to full application, don't round numbers up, just sort of put it out there as it is. And as I said before, it's just maybe beneficial just to complete it in a separate document, just so that you don't lose anything and that you can save it down and come back to it if you need to sort of collect some more data or work on it at another time. So that's a good way of doing it now. And then any other questions? We've answered a few questions. Carl, is there any other questions in the chat?
I'm just have a look. I think the two yellow lines that are
I know, I'm not sure where they've come from.
Are a bit of a problem. I can't delete them, so unfortunately, I've attempted to do that. No, there's nothing that we haven't included. I think it's important to understand a couple of things with regard to the support that you can get from us as business advisors. The link and the email address for us is going to be made available, and if you reach out to us, one of us will come back to you and support you on the basis of whether it's a query or its queries as part of EOI. Secondly, on the website we've got a frequently asked questions section, which is a live question process, which is updated on a daily basis through our grant team. So if there are any queries that you have, you can engage with that process and through the business advisor, and we'll get an update to you via that frequently asked questions section, which is really useful because everyone benefits from all the queries that are submitted that way. Back to you, Kelly.
Yeah, so just really to sort of close up, for some reason it won't let me go to the next slide, which has got our business advisor. Oh, there we go. Sorry, there we go. So please take a note of the email address there. If you have any queries, don't hesitate to sort of reach out. Would rather clarify them now so that you have a really strong expression of interest and go through to the next stage. As Carl mentioned, all of the associated documentation is on the website, and we're going to send the slides through, and I'll just put the link on there as well, just so that you've got the link straight to the website, straight to the fund. You can see the assessment framework, the expression of interest link, and our FAQs that are on there as well. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel, which again, I'll pop the link on there just in case you wanted to run through it again, so that you can see that. And yeah, just we're here to help. So if there's any additional questions, or you want to have a phone call or a meeting with one of us and just go through the expression of interest or any queries you have in a bit more detail, I'm more than happy to help. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, sorry to interrupt you. If you're in presenting mode, you might not realise you have one raised hand, and I think there's 2 or 3 questions coming up in the chat.
Yeah, I've got those.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm just making sure
Thanks,
people
John.
don't. All right.
Here's John.
Okay. I think Kate has raised a query with regard to the other grant scheme that we launched 2 weeks ago as part of this overview of the grants available, and I think that's relating to the maximum grant of 50k. That is a completely different scheme than what we're talking about today with regard to this is the larger grant scheme.
Yeah. We've got a workshop next week. It's on Eventbrite. It's also, you can access the registration link through our events section on the SEMLEP Growth Hub website. We're going to be doing something very similar to this next week. I believe it's the 18th. And we're going to be running through in a lot more detail about the Resilience and Innovation Grant. That's going to be much more on the application as well as the expression of interest. So yeah, feel free to join us next week, Kate, on that one.
I've got, I think there's also a query from Lucy with regard to the whole public funding element. And I think it will probably be worth us contacting you, Lucy, just to talk you through it so that you can clarify any particular queries with us directly.
I think that would be also useful to be published in more detail online as well. There's, I think someone from my organisation has emailed about asking about, National Lottery being a separate grant, but technically public funding. And also in terms of the eligibility thing, I just want to flag something that might confuse other people. On this presentation, you've got the charity options for sort of registration number being charity number, or your company number, or your UTR, or your charity number. The charity bit is not on the online EOI form. And also this presentation was the first time that I saw that public sector organisations can't apply. So that might be worth, definitely worth
thank you.
Broadcasting it more, and also maybe just clarifying exactly what you mean by those terms, as Lucy was saying.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, if there aren't any other, are there any other questions?
Marion's got a question.
Yeah, so coming back to the match part again, if an organisation has some of its own capital funds that it could use to match, can that be part of the equation?
Yeah. Yeah,
Basically,
so-
they haven't got enough to do the whole job without this grant support. That's what I mean.
Yeah, so I think the match doesn't have to come from just one source. I think you could yeah, pull in.
But it can come from your own.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fund.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anything else, Carl, Sandra?
That's all good. Mhm.
Everybody answered.
I think
Caroline and
there's a-
Lucy, I'm going to
there's-
come back to
I
you
think-
separately.
I think it's Brian is asking about the resilience grant, the smaller grant scheme. So again, we'll take your details and we'll come back to you direct, Brian.
Great.
It's
Okay.
worth iterating that you will get a copy of these slides after the workshop is finished, and you will have an opportunity to still get in touch with us if you think of questions that come out later. But we're here to help. You can reach us at the address there. So if anyone, oh, Marion, have you got another question? So if there isn't any more questions, well, thank you very much for attending, and we're here to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.